Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Israel Brief, brought to you by Lay of the Land. I'm Rolene Marks for a special Yom Hashoa Memorial Edition. Today is Yom Hashoa Holocaust Martyrs and Memorial Day in Israel, and I know many of our diaspora communities around the world are commemorating the day as well. I know that there are events in South Africa, in the UK, that there will be in the United States, as well as across South America and Europe as well. Now, today is a day allocated in the Israeli calendar specific to mourn and to remember the Jewish victims of the Holocaust. Every year on the 27th of January, the United Nations has designated that day International Holocaust Memorial Day, where we remember and commemorate all the victims of Nazi atrocities. But it was specifically the Jewish community or Jews who were targeted for extermination. And the day is set aside in Israel for a day of mourning, a day of reflection, and a day to remember the solemnity of Yom Hashoa and all that we have lost. It's particularly emotional in Israel, and it starts at sundown the night before with a very, very moving ceremony at Yad Vashem in Jerusalem. Yad Vashem is the museum and memorial to victims of the Holocaust, and it is a place where every single human being who comes to Israel should visit to understand the Jewish experience, but also to understand how extreme hatred, if left to flourish, can result in genocide. And the pain of the Holocaust is with us through the generations. It's not something that we can easily forget. In fact, we vow never to forget, because we understand the importance of never again and the importance of educating the next generation. Now, last night's ceremony was opened by both President Rivlin, who spoke very, very movingly. He told stories of victims of the Holocaust, and he also spoke about the importance of not aligning with ultra-nationalist governments, that we need to retain our morality and we need to retain our perspective, because it's the extreme viewpoints that result in allowing this kind of hatred to flourish. Prime Minister Netanyahu also spoke about the rising anti-Semitism around the world, and in particular he singled out not just Iran with their threats against the existence of the State of Israel, but also the New York Times, as well as the shooting at a Chabad synagogue in San Diego over the past weekend, which left Laurie Gilbert Kay of blessed memory dead, and it was carried out by a white supremacist who subscribed to the very ideology that the Nazis have. Now, no sooner had the ceremony ended, but sirens rang across southern Israel as terror elements within the Gaza Strip fired rockets onto southern communities. And it is a bitter reminder of the fact that there are many who don't want the State of Israel to exist or the Jewish nation to exist. But we are here, we have survived, and we are not going anywhere. At 10 o'clock this morning, the memorial siren rang out or wailed across the country for at least 2 minutes, and Israelis, no matter where we were, whether we were in the gym or meetings, driving on the streets, wherever we are, we stood and we bowed our head in solemn memorial for the victims of the Holocaust. And it's something that's quite profound and something that's very difficult to describe unless you've been in Israel at a time like this. And I urge you all to go online, and there's a lot of footage of how Israel just comes to a complete and utter standstill. Also, and I normally don't give homework on the Israel Brief, but I appeal to you all to please go online, go into Yad Vashem's archives and look for the name of at least one person and one family, and get to know them, get to understand who they were and what their experience during the Holocaust was. Because we cannot forget that it's not just about the numbers. it's not just about 6 million. It's about the fact that these were people, these were families. Unto every person there is a name, and we honor their memory by perpetuating and talking and mentioning their names and their stories. And every day this grows more and more important as survivors become fewer and fewer. And it is a very, very moving and special moment to witness every year the survivors lighting the torches of remembrance at Yad Vashem. Now today, all of the coverage on television, on radio, is that to reflect the Holocaust and to tell the stories and to explain what happened, what led to this catastrophe for the Jewish people happening. You know, it didn't happen in a vacuum, and as I've often said on the brief, it didn't start with gas chambers. It started with words. It started with images. It started with politicians. So today, as we remember our solemn vow of never again, I really appeal to you all, not just to do your homework, which is to get to know a Jew or a Jewish family that died during the Holocaust, but to make sure that we ensure that never again, or that never again does hatred be allowed to flourish and reach the highs that it is at the moment. You know, the Anti-Defamation League released their study yesterday, and the stats are alarming. Anti-Semitism is at an all-time high in the world, and incidents have tripled in the United States. Now, it's with this in mind that the AJC, the American Jewish Committee, have signed an agreement with senior Islamic officials to bring them to Poland, to take them to the Auschwitz death camp so that they can understand the Jewish experience and what Jews endured during the Holocaust. And now more than ever, where there are so many divides in the world, this kind of outreach to religious leaders from the Muslim community to the Christian community is so very, very important. Next week we will bow our heads again as we remember our fallen soldiers and victims of terror, and then celebrate Yom HaAtzmaut, which is Israeli Independence Day. But as the hours of Yom Hashoa come to a close, I urge you all to go online to read the content. We've got a lot of Yom Hashoa content on the site at www.layoftheland.online. There's a lot of coverage about what is anti-Semitism, what's happening in the world at the moment. There are personal stories, and there is 2 articles, one written by myself, one written by my co-founder Dave Kaplan, on our experiences interviewing a very special man, Judge Gabriel Bach, one of the prosecutors who tried Adolf Eichmann, the arch-Nazi who was responsible for the death of millions. And you're in for a real treat with those 2 interviews. And also our Facebook community is growing and growing and growing, and don't miss out on your opportunity to join us. Check us out on @Lottel's site on Facebook. We look a little something like that. And click on the subscribe button below to receive your daily edition of the Israel Brief. I'm Rolene Marks. This is the Israel Brief, and again, I dedicate today's brief to the victims and the survivors of the Shoah, of the Holocaust. And I wish you all Shabbat Shalom and a very pleasant weekend.